wanted to officially welcome you to our kickoff event for what we are calling the Rotary Swarm. This is a very exciting moment for me personally, because when I first got introduced to the Rotary Club through a club that was in Johnson County, I bumped into a network that I had not seen in any other place than in the trafficking world, and saw a network where they are coordinated globally, and they literally can catalyze and mobilize one another in a very quick fashion. And so I became a Rotarian, really because I wanted to observe and see, how does this work? And the more that I got to know Rotary Club, I saw that they're really committed to being involved and engaging in their local communities as well as around the world. And so came up with this idea of let's leverage that network to the effort to support the efforts to end human trafficking here in our community. So we're very, very fortunate that our district 5710 saw fit to support this idea, and Lenexa and Leawood Rotary Clubs both are sponsors of this effort, as well as we have a sister organization in Taipei, Oriental Integrity Rotary Club, who are also sponsors of this effort. So want to start by saying thank you very much to Rotary for seeing how you can make a difference from right where you're at. And we actually had some announcements at the beginning of our networking time together, where one of our e-clubs, this is a club where called the Cat Club, where you join online as we are today for their weekly meetings. And they just got a grant from Kansas leadership to provide a mobile immunization unit for survivors of trafficking. So we're very excited to be able to report today very tangible ways that just regular people, right, are stepping forward and saying, I'm ready and I'm available, what can I do? Today, you're going to hear some really fantastic information from Ashley Chapman. She is the founder and president of Engage Together, and you're going to be hearing about Justice University, and this is a wonderful resource also being provided through this Rotary grant, where we have coupons to provide access to Justice University at no charge to you. But if you did choose to go ahead and pay, it's only $25. So as I've sent that out, there have been companies in Kansas City that have literally said, even this morning, said, we are sending this out to all of our employees and inviting them to complete Justice University. So you'll hear more about that. Something else, the lion's share of what you're going to hear about today is you're going to hear about a community needs assessment that we have launched in partnership with Engage Together. We first did this back in 2017, and we've continued to try to keep it updated, and just did a huge push to get this updated for this event today. As you look at this community needs assessment, I hope that what you'll see is there are people that are missing from this who need to be represented in this data that we're gathering. And you are the one that can get them connected in, so that we can have as vibrant and accurate a picture of what is going on in our community, and how can we as everyday people come alongside those efforts to make them the most successful that they can be. The reason traffickers are so successful, my friends, is they can coordinate even with their greatest enemy in a time of need, in a snap. So can we as community citizens, when we align ourselves together and choose to do that, regardless of our difference of opinions, we still can come together whenever we need to make a difference to help a vulnerable person, and to create a safe community, and create a community where everyone, regardless of their history, regardless, right, of just regardless, right? We can have a safety net here in Kansas City where all people can be free, and where there are meaningful opportunities than to being trafficked. right? So my friends, I'm so excited that you're here. That was supposed to be a 2-minute welcome. It was longer than that, but I just wanted to set the stage and share with you a little bit of my personal excitement for you all being here today. As I turn this over to Ashley, she's going to share a little bit of housekeeping, but then we're going to jump in to the meat of this presentation today.
Thank you, Lucy, and welcome everyone. We're thrilled that you are spending your lunch hour this second Wednesday of the month with us today. So as Lucy shared, this is a collaboration that is beginning kind of to the public today, especially in the Kansas City metro area and especially in Johnson County. Between the Rotary clubs represented there, the Rotary district that Lucy mentioned, between Veronica's Voice and their KC Case initiative, and Engage Together. So I am excited to see many names that I know already. I've been in your city working with Lucy now for years to try to strengthen your anti-trafficking efforts, try to help those who are working on behalf of this issue. And today we're going to really dive deep into the results of a community assessment project. We'll talk all about that in just a moment and really talk about next steps. So whether you're joining this call because you're a direct service provider already, I think you're going to gain a lot of information and more resources for you, especially to come in the coming weeks and months ahead. If you're brand new, though, to this topic, we welcome you as well. And just keep your ears open for ways that your unique skills, passions, and interests can be matched to come alongside this, what the local Rotary clubs are calling a Rotary Swarm effort, right? So to join that effort together and just really start getting engaged. We believe with all our heart that human trafficking does not have to exist in our world today. It does not have to exist in your communities, but it will take a world of people to end it. And that includes everyone on this call and so many more. So before we dive in, as Lucy shared, my name is Ashley Chapman. I am human rights lawyer, been in this field now for going on 21 years, trying to abolish what I don't believe should exist on our planet, which is, of course, the trafficking of adults and children, foreign nationals and citizens, for labor, sex, and organ trafficking. And then, of course, trying to stop it from happening in the first place by making sure our communities are caring for the most vulnerable in our communities that traffickers are targeting and exploiting every single day. Some housekeeping items for you are that we are recording the session. So we're going to talk fast and don't let that worry you. You can listen to it again later. You will be able to share it with others later as well. We'll be posting this recording to the website that's hosting these community conversations. If you have a question during this next hour that you're just burning, you don't want to wait till that 1 o'clock to 1:15 moment to discuss it, and you want to put it in the chat, please do. We have a couple of wonderful folks from the Veronica's Voice team, Michaela and Natalie, who are monitoring that. So if you have a question, please put that in the chat. If we can't get to it during this hour, we'll get to it, during the Q&A session on the other side, but we'll do our best to get everything you need to take whatever bit of information you're asking for to the next level. So we are asking you to stay on mute and keep your cameras off during this noon to 1 hour, and then we'll open the floor back up so everybody can see each other and have a good conversation afterwards as well. If when we're sharing the screen in just a moment, if you have trouble seeing it, there are ways to enlarge your screen to see that. And Lucy, am I right? There's sort of a black bar that they're going to be able to see. And if you can click on that black bar next to the speaker that you're listening to, which will either be Lucy or myself, you can just stretch it out and make that big. We'll try to zoom in for you too, and just walk you through the whole thing also verbally. All right, are we ready to begin? I think so. So back to you, Lucy, for a moment to kind of level set us on the context, and then we'll dive into all the things we're going to chat about today.
Yes, thank you, Ashley. And I'm excited for everybody to learn more about Engage Together and all of the resources that are there. So do check out that website. And I also want to tell you about a website that we have hosted on the veronicasvoice.org site, Rotary-Swarm. Swarm. Okay, Rotary-Swarm. And that is where all of this information will be stored. Veronica's Voice, many of you are already aware of this organization. We were founded in 2000 by a survivor of 24 years of commercial sexual exploitation. So what we now today call sex trafficking. The reason we're named Veronica's Voice is Veronica, who was like so many other women, turned out into the life at the age of 14. She ended up being murdered at the age of 21. Christy had already been working with many women on her pathway out of the life. She was paving a way for everyone to come behind her, that she could get to come behind her. And connecting with organizations like the ones represented here today, right? And connecting with those organizations, they became friends with these women who were fighting for their way out of the life. They were no longer just a number. They were no longer a nameless person that they saw on the street corner. They were people, they knew their first names, their children's names. They knew Veronica's children's names. And when she was murdered, it shook that community. They came around Christy, our founder, and provided funding for her to be able to launch this nonprofit, Veronica's Voice. We have been dedicated to direct services to survivors of a diverse range of people, all ages. But we have a residential program that's designed for adult women, but we still have referral and support services for all persons. And then we also have been very dedicated to demand reduction and to community education and reform work. And this is where Ashley comes in. As you guys will see, as you start to see the data that's going to get shared today, the lion's share of some of this work has been falling on the shoulders of nonprofits who are already stretched so thin, right? And being so creative with every penny, right, Sherry? I mean, I know you guys are relating to this. And Ashley came alongside to say, I can help you mobilize your community. We can help educate them, equip them, right, and get them mobilized. So she's been working with our mobilization program, which is called KCCASE, Kansas City Collaboration Against Sexual Exploitation. She's been working with us since 2017. And this latest advancement has been Rotary coming alongside to enhance our efforts and leverage their network and bringing more people into this response. And so we're very excited to have the community needs assessment updated to share with you today, and excited to have you join this effort.
All right, well, let us begin. So I'm going to share my screen. Remember, you can enlarge it on your side, and we're going to walk through some things together. So this session today is all about the community assessment report. And as you've heard, it's a collaboration between Engage Together, Veronica's Voice, and Rotary. Where we're headed next, though, with this is, and let me get over to the right page. Here we go. Sorry about that. So today we're going to discover a few things. We're going to discover a comprehensive picture of anti-trafficking efforts in Kansas City and surrounding areas. We're going to discuss the strengths, gaps, needs, and opportunities for community engagement and collective impact, which we have distilled from surveys that have gone out to the community, and we'll talk about that soon. And then we really want to land on next steps for you to engage. Before I dive into any kind of conversation like this, I want to preface by saying if you're new to this field, to this issue, this may feel overwhelming. And I would love to encourage you in this moment to just transition that mindset from being overwhelmed to seeing this as a world of opportunity for you to become part of the solution. So and no matter what hat you wear. So if you're a business professional, if you attend a church or house of worship in your community, if you're an educator, if you're a parent, if you're a student, there's so much that is needed in your communities and so much you can do. So here we go. Before we dive into the findings, I want to discuss what is a community assessment. So when Engage Together comes alongside amazing leaders in communities like Lucy Bloom and others across our country and around our world, we deploy something called a community assessment project. And what we're trying to accomplish in this is to move the conversation from what's going on in our city or in our community to, okay, here's everything going on. Now, what do we do? Right? Like, so we want to see everyone and everything being done and everywhere it's being done so that we can really map all the key performance indicators of what it's going to take to eradicate human trafficking in your community. When we first come to this issue, though, it is when we first ask the question as just a human being, a concerned citizen, about what can be done to end human trafficking, and communities behave this way too, even countries that we've coached. We think immediately in about three buckets of activity, and you're going to see that play out today in the findings results. But those are, well, we need to raise awareness of this topic. We need to intervene, right? So we've got to help either rescue or recover or help individuals exit the situation wherever they are on that pendulum of need. We need to intervene, and we need to provide aftercare. And those are three very essential pieces of a puzzle to end human trafficking, but it's not everything. So what happens is we get highly concentrated, we're reactive in communities to what we're seeing being presented to us in this terrible thing that's happening, and we respond, and that's good. But what's better is if we can truly understand positively everything that has to be happening and make sure everyone is engaged and we're lighting up really every dark crevice where this is existing in our cities. Now we have a hope of truly ending it. So this is where our heads go when we're first thinking about trafficking. But the reality is this. This is everything that needs to be happening in Kansas City and surrounding communities in order to end human trafficking and prevent it. So you can think about these big puzzle pieces as sort of the top level of effort. We need to be working on identifying victims of trafficking, victims for both labor and sex trafficking, adults and children, those who are foreign to our communities and those who are US citizens. So identification efforts have to be happening, which of course then leads to either a rescue or recovery operation or else an exit, supporting someone who can exit on their own or somewhere in the middle there. So that needs to start happening. Restoration has to be immediately available, or the people who have been removed from these harmful situations sometimes go back to the very vulnerabilities that led to their exploitation, and they get re-exploited. And we see this all over the place. Reforms have to be taking place simultaneously to all of that, because whatever is broken in your community, and there's a lot that's going to be broken that we're going to be illuminating that needs to be fixed. Sometimes some pretty radical reforms need to be taking place. We need to be asking questions about why. Why is this true? Why is this happening? Why is this particular group of people not getting what they need? Why is it that victims are getting re-exploited? Why are they not being identified in the first place? So all those why questions will lead to the reform efforts that we need to see start happening in communities. And of course, we've got to prevent it in the first place. So all of this needs to be healthy. And what I mean by that is instead of this concentration I talked about, where we have a kind of an intense concentration in three buckets of effort in a community, all of this needs to be in play simultaneously, all pretty well at the same level of effort. And then once we get there, we can start to lean into those areas of very great need, and we might see some, concentration after that. So in prevention, though, if we break down these top level categories, it's really important to understand the level after that. And we don't break it down any further, at least for this purpose, because after that it's owed to nuance. But the first two layers are important to understand. When we are working to prevent human trafficking, that's not just an issue of awareness. We have to address demand. So who are the buyers? Who are the traffickers? Why is there a demand for labor exploitation, for sexual exploitation, right? So, and globally, of course, when we're looking at organ trafficking. So what's going on there? Why is that happening? How can that be rightly addressed? And we need to look at the vulnerability side of it. So who are the individuals who are being exploited? What are the vulnerabilities that exist in their life? And how would we as a community wrap around that to make sure that a trafficker is not able to exploit that vulnerability, because we are making sure that that is being taken care of as a community. When we get to identification, it's not just an issue of training, but it's also an issue of outreach. And training is not awareness. So when we're talking about awareness, awareness is general knowledge. So general knowledge about the issue of trafficking, general understandings. But when we're talking about a training, that needs to be typically peer-to-peer trainings. But you're training individuals who are in a position to see human trafficking in your community, to identify victims, and to know what to do when they see it. And so that training will look very different from law enforcement to social workers to teachers to nonprofits providing direct services to vulnerable populations, et cetera. So everyone needs to know precisely what indicators will be presenting themselves to their facility or their setting or their profession and what to do. And then, of course, we got to be reaching out to vulnerable communities. When we get to this rescue slash exit kind of pendulum moment, we have intervention is key, obviously, but so are temporary shelter, services, and victims advocates. If we do not have those three things when we intervene in a situation, we are not serving those individuals well. Because if we have nowhere to take an individual who is maybe an adult male labor trafficking victim in your community, if there's no place for him to go right in that moment, that temporary moment upon exit, we're going to have a serious problem caring well for that individual. If services are not immediately available, medical and psychological and dental and healthcare and family support and all kinds of services that need to start being wrapped around legal support, those need to be immediately available in a community. And victim advocates. When we get over to restoration, it's not just an issue of aftercare, although that's critically important. And we need aftercare for every population that's being trafficked in your community, but it's also an issue of reintegration. So how do we help a person build now a future? And how do we help them not just cast a vision for that, but get there, whether that's vocational or educational? But we've got to work together to create those pathways as a community. And then, of course, legal policy and systems reforms. As a lawyer, obviously, this is my favorite part of the pendulum. But if you're not a lawyer, don't shut your brain off here, because if you're running into problems in preventing, identifying, helping someone exit a situation and restoration, then it's probably because something needs to be reformed in your community. And without an eye on that, we're not going to succeed. So those are the program areas. That's everything in a community assessment that needs to be happening in your city. Now, the other thing that we're mapping for is to figure out, okay, for all of those program areas, are they available for every gender, for adults and children, for foreign nationals and citizens, for labor and sex trafficking? So we're opening up the whole line of sight in order to make sure that everything and everything is being done, everyone is being cared for, and we're looking at it everywhere. So we're looking at it statewide, by county, by region, by city. And this particular project that we've been running since 2017 has really been focused here in this Kansas City and surrounding areas. And today we'll deep dive into that, as well as a deeper dive into Johnson County. Beyond those, what I would call quantitative KPIs. So what's being done or not being done, who's being served, who's not being served, where is it happening, where is it not? We're adding in some qualitative questions as well. So we want to know from the organizations who are providing any of those program services, what are your top 3 fundable, tangible, and service needs? What do you feel is working well in your community? What do you think is the greatest challenge in your community? And those are insights that we're asking individuals who are on the ground, in the field, every day working on this, because we want the community to know. So all of our Rotarians participating in this Rotary Swarm, all concerned citizens, all sectors, to ask themselves a question or 3 questions. How could I enhance my own existing efforts to support that need or meet that challenge or strengthen that effort? How would I just come alongside people who are already doing it well? Or if there are gaps in my community's efforts, and there are always gaps, how might I work together with others to fill it? So these are qualitative questions we're asking as well. And then we're layering in a lot of information for the community about vulnerabilities that are present in your community. This is a list of vulnerabilities that are present, that we know are the key vulnerabilities across the United States that are driving human trafficking, driving the exploitation of vulnerable individuals. So we have runaway and homeless youth, children and youth in foster care, individuals fleeing violence or natural disasters, individuals with disabilities, those who've already suffered exploitation or abuse in their lifetime, foreign nationals, marginalized groups, and all minority groups. Now, the thing that all of these vulnerable populations have in common, if it's not obvious, is they mostly are lacking resources, lacking access, to safety nets and supportive networks. And this is how a trafficker will exploit. So traffickers typically are exploiting vulnerabilities through force, fraud, or coercion. And there's an asterisk on that because that is not required if it's a child who's involved in commercial sexual exploitation. But for labor trafficking and adult sex trafficking, that's what's required to be shown to be trafficking. But these are the vulnerabilities and the vulnerable populations that traffickers are exploiting. Next month, when we come back together again, we'll be doing a deep dive on what are the driving vulnerabilities unique to your community. So stay tuned for that. But that's also something we look at when we're assessing a community. Then all of that information, to use a technical term, gets slurped in to our systems, and we're able to render this in a series of web-based dashboards that can be explored, downloaded, and shared for three really critical purposes. We want to increase your ability to increase your strategic response as a community so that we can quit guessing, we can quit feeling our way through what needs to be done, and we can really start leaning in based on true data insights into a strategy that's going to incorporate everyone. We want to increase collaboration between organizations that are working together and welcome new people to the table, and we want to increase care. So for victims and survivors, if we all know what everyone is doing at our fingertips, we have that information, then we can help a person very quickly get what they need. So the goal of findings review like today, and we're just really introducing this, and we're going to be unpacking it deep dives over the next several months to come. But do we want to share comprehensive insights to increase collective impact with the goal to end and prevent trafficking in your community? I want to thank the participating organizations who have so far participated in this survey gathering process. Here's a shout out to all of them. We had 82 organizations in the Kansas City metro area. So yes, slow clap you all for participating, to sharing what you're doing, who you're serving, where that's happening, your needs, what you consider strengths, what you consider challenges. And if you don't see your name on here and you're thinking, oh, I should have participated in that, you likely have an invitation in your inbox. So check that out. And if you lost it or you're not sure where that is, then we'll tell you at the end of this hour where to go to participate in this effort. So now we're going to go to the results. Here we are. So as I shared, we have, let me move this over here. We had 80 to 82 organizations who participated in this community survey. So 80 who gave us complete enough information out of the 82 for us to, again, technical term, slurp it into our system. So you can see that we had the concentration of locations here, but it's both Kansas City, Kansas side and Kansas City, Missouri side. And the reason that these counties are colored in is because many of these organizations here are serving statewide. So I want to walk us through a few high view points, and then we're going to deep dive. Before I do that though, Lucy, am I forgetting to say or share anything up to this point? I just want to give you an opportunity to chime in real quick.
This is excellent. It's
okay.
Yeah, it's tracking really well.
We're tracking. All right. So participating organizations, here we are. Efforts by sector engagement in Kansas City. So if this is small, again, I'll zoom in a little bit for you as well, but you can zoom in your screen as well. Here's by number and by percentage. I'm giving you two lists here. Right now, those reporting in Kansas City are nonprofits, government efforts, churches or other houses of worship, education, and business. And you can see, as Lucy shared earlier, overwhelmingly the burden to combat trafficking is being carried by nonprofits. In fact, that's 65% of the effort to combat trafficking in Kansas City, followed by government. And then we have 5 churches, 5 educational institutions, 4 businesses working in the Kansas City area to address human trafficking as of today. Not listed but desperately needed here are, of course, our civic and service groups. And we can go ahead and just in our minds add in Rotarians, because they are the ones sponsoring this event today, and they're going to be tackling so many things. So they will be listed very soon here. But we also need foundations. We need professional associations. We need individuals in your, even just for your professional capacity, individual lawyers, dentists, nurses, etc., counselors, community level initiatives, and so many more things. So right now we've got a concentration of effort in these sectors of engagement. And I want to come over here real quick. Are you still seeing my screen, Lucy? Are you seeing the sectors?
Yes.
Okay. I really want to lean on the fact that multi-sector engagement in this effort is critical to success. So right now and everywhere this is true, nonprofits and government are really carrying the burden. And it's that those two entities are carrying the burden in your community too. So there is so much that needs to be done, you're about to see, and so many opportunities for all these other sectors to join that. And we are not asking you to be each other. We are not asking, for instance, churches to be businesses, or businesses to act like nonprofits, or nonprofits to act like government, right? So we all have something unique to offer, and we just need to understand how we can fit in. And that's a big part of what we're trying to accomplish through this assessment. So we've got some work to do in increasing sector engagement. This is really just a very high view. Efforts by program, that top level program area in Kansas City, 81% of the efforts in Kansas City are aimed at prevention. We're going to deep dive into subcategories in a second. So, and the smallest percentage, you know, there's a pretty significant drop from efforts related to prevention to those related to rescue or exit, even less restoration. And what is concerning to me about the community is that we've got even like a very small percentage of efforts aimed at identification and reforms. So whether you like to see that in a bar chart or a circle, depending on how your brain is wired, you've got them both there. But let's go into subcategory, because this will be more telling for us. So we can see that in Kansas City area, this is how this is breaking down. And again, we've got a bar chart and we've got the circle. I think it's helpful here if I go by bar. So vulnerability in this, for those of us who've been working in this field a long time, or someone like myself who you know has supported over 10,000 anti-trafficking efforts around the globe, I will say this is true everywhere, but it is true in Kansas City also. So the bulk of the effort to combat trafficking in Kansas City, we're doing a pretty good job, looks like. We're going to need more information to know for sure. But to address vulnerable populations, or at least that's where a lot of the efforts are concentrated, followed by raising awareness in the community, followed by aftercare. But when we get to about less than 30% of the effort here, these are areas that in Kansas City are going to need some help. And we're going to dive into Johnson County here in a second, pretty deep dive, but I think you'll find that the same is true. So I'll save my comments for gap analysis when we get into Johnson County, since the bulk of the folks on this call are from that area. We'll dive there. But I think immediately you can see what we need to be seeing is healthy percentages around this entire spectrum. And instead, what we're seeing is a pretty great need in issues like legal support, policy reforms, temporary shelters, intervention efforts, victim advocates, systems reforms, outreach, training, and services. So these are areas that are gaps, you know, that we're starting to see. It doesn't mean that no one's working in those spaces. We've got folks working there, but the percentage is small. So we're gonna need to do better. Demographic breakdown. Here's how this is working out. So 64% of the efforts in Kansas City Metro are aimed at addressing sex trafficking. This other, so if you can see this, I'll zoom in. This other means that the individuals who are reporting their services don't consider that they're working directly with victims, but they are working with vulnerable populations. So 39% of those reporting say they are working with vulnerable populations. Only 26% of the effort in Kansas City is focused on labor trafficking, and that needs to increase. because, and that is true everywhere, but also true in Kansas City. So sex trafficking, and understandably so, gets a lot of media attention, gets a lot of the attention in, discussions across the country, and efforts that get funded. But labor trafficking is absolutely happening in the Kansas City area, and we need to take care of those individuals as well. When we look at sort of the breakdown between age groups, um, what this is telling us here, these visualizations, is that the demographic that's getting that has the most services available to them, although I would say they don't have everything available to them, we still have to strengthen those services to meet the need. But those who are getting the most support in Kansas City are adult female citizens in Kansas City. Those getting the least support would be children, um, those who identify as male, and of course our non-citizens. Now, I want to say a good thing about what I did notice in the responses, because we dive a little bit deeper into the data also on this, is that many groups did report serving highly vulnerable populations as part of their anti-trafficking efforts, including LGBTQ communities, immigrants and refugees, and individuals with disabilities. So this is very good. So we have something a really strong foundation to really build on and continue to expand on there. But we're going to dive deeper now into Johnson County. So we're zeroing in here. And I'm inside our dashboards now. So heads up, if you participated in this, or you're someone who wants access to this, Lucy and I will be making that available to you soon, so that you can get in here and play and see some things that you need to see to support your community. But let's just zone in on Johnson County for a moment. And let's go back to discussing where some of our strengths are in Johnson County and where some of our gaps are. And I'm going to go by program area first. So right now, it looks like we are in Johnson County at a pretty healthy percentage for potentially addressing vulnerability, but we'll know more about what are the vulnerabilities that are driven, because it could be that we're focusing our efforts on one particular vulnerability and not addressing them all. So that's why we're going to do some deep dive conversations coming up in the months to come. But vulnerability awareness and demand and systems outreach and training seem to have some significant kind of efforts going on. There are 36 organizations reporting combating human trafficking in Johnson County. So that's where this information is coming from. But those areas of great need in Johnson County are temporary shelters. So we need to be figuring out, okay, we only right now have 3 organizations providing temporary shelter. Victim advocates, we have 4 organizations reporting that they are serving victim advocate efforts. Intervention obviously is critical. Aftercare services, reintegration. So these are sort of your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 top areas that we need to start paying very close attention to soon, to figure out, because without these efforts being strong in your community, if we're raising awareness and we increase identifications, but we have no place to take those individuals in that moment, and we don't have any services available to meet their immediate needs or long-term needs, and we don't have strong community advocate efforts to walk alongside them in their journey from restoration to reintegration, then this is going to fall apart in the life of a victim so many times without those supports. Lucy, I would love your insights here. What would you love to kind of highlight, given what we can see now in Johnson County?
Something that I'm aware of that's happening here in our local communities is because there is not the access to the services that Ashley's pointing to here. People end up having to go to Kansas City, Missouri to try to get into services there. Mm-hmm. And when we're flooding, one area with so many vulnerable people, it creates more harm. It creates more danger, more potential for harm in those areas. So that's where it's so important that in a inside a given community, we have the ability to be that safety net for the people who live there,
Mhm.
and we don't have to send them outside that community. And we can go more into the vulnerabilities of that type of a scenario in our next session. But we also see from the surrounding communities, because of a lack of the service availability in those communities, we even have youth who are coming from our surrounding community to Kansas City, Missouri, and they're ending up in tremendous harm's way. They end up in the booklets for our search that we do in the fall for missing persons. So it's really critical what Ashley's bringing up, to our attention, that we have the service availability right in the community where people are currently residing.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that's incredibly good insight there. So yes, so without this, let me explain something that I hope you can hear me say. Traffickers do not just exploit vulnerable individuals. They exploit vulnerabilities in your community's response. So they are very aware of the fact that in Johnson County, these are lacking things, because those are the very things that are allowing them to exploit individuals and keep them in a life of exploitation. So we have got to start beefing this up so that and getting the word out that these services, these temporary shelters are available. So that's really important. The other thing I really want to say here too is we're not asking the 36 organizations who are serving Johnson County to go create a million new programs. So that is not the ask, right? So the ask is not, hey, and let's just take a look at, how that breaks down for a second. We have 36 organizations here. And just how that breaks down is we have 23 nonprofits serving Johnson County. We have 6 government agencies addressing human trafficking in Johnson County. Only 4 businesses. Looks like from the reporting, at least, those who reported in, only 1 church and 1 educational institution, which happens to be a college. So if we're taking a look at this, we are not asking the nonprofits and government agencies to somehow diversify their efforts to make sure to fill in, these gaps necessarily. What we are asking the community to consider is the fact that you've got businesses that could be mightily leveraged in certain areas here, for especially in reintegration and services, whether they're sponsoring aftercare efforts, whether they are outsourcing their employees to provide support. One of my favorite examples of this is that Coca-Cola years ago, we were working with them to usher them in to fighting human trafficking. And they realized that in Atlanta, where one of their headquarters was, there was a high concentration of foreign national labor and sex trafficking victims in that city. And even upon a rescue operation or their exit from that situation, it was very difficult for them to work their way through all the legal steps to get a U visa or T visa. So even though there were supports, we had the right laws and policies in place to support those individuals getting out of that situation, being cared for, coming under our protection, and even being on the pathway to citizenship in the United States. It was a complex legal process that these individuals did not know how to navigate. So Coca-Cola outsourced what was their strength that they could provide? Well, they had a massive legal department. So they outsourced attorneys within that legal department to be able to spend time working with a local immigration nonprofit to do those U visa and T visa applications. It was a beautiful solution in that community. So again, we got to start thinking about, okay, these are areas that need our attention, but who might we bring to the table to support our capacity to meet this need? And right now I can tell you, there's a lot of opportunity in Johnson County to bring new people to the table, right? So we've got lots of opportunity to bring in educators, churches, civic clubs, et cetera, to help out. I also want to zone in on this education, because right now we have 1 reporting in. So thank you to the educational institution who reported in. But their efforts right now, we can tell, are wholly concentrated in awareness. So that's good. But remember, that is not everything. And especially on school campuses, whether they are higher ed, and especially if they're K through 12, we must be training all of our school personnel and staff and teachers and bus drivers on the indicators, especially truancy officers, right? Our school resource officers on the indicators of child trafficking, whether it's child labor trafficking or child sex trafficking, which we refer to as commercial sexual exploitation of children, CSEC. So they have to receive that training. They must be involved in the intervention efforts, and they can even be involved in the aftercare, providing reintegrative pathways, scholarships to educational opportunities, et cetera. So this is, we want to see these program areas get diversified in Johnson County for the educational institutions. We want to see businesses coming alongside. So let me get out of education and let's take a look at what our businesses are doing in Kansas City for a moment. So they are saying that they are diversified here, but in areas like these that are smaller, like I just mentioned, services, for instance, there's so much that businesses have to offer. And of course, we have no representation at this time of civic clubs, professional associations, et cetera, that could be helping to boost these areas of need. Sort of the last thing I want to highlight today, and again, if you participated in these surveys or you think you should be, we're going to give you that opportunity and give you access to these dashboards so that you can get in here and explore a lot of more details. But also in Johnson County, I do want to showcase this. So on the demographic data, so it looks like we've got quite a few efforts. 92% of reporting agencies are serving adults in Johnson County, but only 61% are serving children and 67 non-citizens. So it looks like, from the data we can see, that we need to be increasing our efforts in Johnson County to work with kiddos who are absolutely at high risk of trafficking, and our foreign nationals in our communities who are especially at high risk of both labor and sex trafficking. So more needs to be done there. And then, of course, and it follows suit here that in Johnson County, we are highly concentrated on sex trafficking. That's good, and we need even more efforts related to that. But we really must also start looking at the labor trafficking side of this equation as well. So some next steps are just kind of the things I really want to make sure that we know are kind of the next things that we need to focus on. To reiterate, is we need to increase our knowledge about what's going on in these communities. One more thing I did want to share, Lucy, I just realized. Let me do that real quick. And this would be, we did ask, and I would say that these results, we're still cleaning them up a little bit. So, but this is going to give you at least a little bit of an interesting picture. So when we asked the community, what are the challenges versus the successes? I thought this was an interesting thing. So about the community, Kansas City, broadly speaking, is about split in their feels around whether awareness is a challenge. We're still needing to raise awareness, or the right kind of awareness. That's possibly what they mean, versus a strength. And whether increasing community, about half the folks reporting in felt like that was a strength, but the other half felt like it was a challenge to kind of create a collaborative effort. So hopefully this will help meet this. Demand, education, funding, resources, these are all challenges and needs in the community. And folks are feeling on the other side that enforcement of these laws is starting to take off. So we're going to have more information here. We'll dive into this deeper. We're going to clean this up a little bit more, make sure everything here is perfectly spot on. But I did want to share, we're also kind of making sure we can provide that information to you all as well. So we're going to work to increase our knowledge in the next several months of effort here. By inviting more people to participate in this project, by interviewing every second Wednesday of every month. We're going to deep dive with local experts on specific pieces of this puzzle. And then what we're going to do is increase sector engagement and work with your communities to do that. So let's talk about some resources real quick, and then I'm going to hand the baton back over to Lucy. So, and then at the top of the hour, we'll stop recording and start open the floor for questions. But resources and next steps for you. Here we go. You heard about Justice U, and this is our online university for justice advocates from the concerned citizen to the professional in the field. And thanks to Rotary, if you are in the Johnson County area, you will get scholarship into these courses. And so you'll use this Rotary Swarm code over here that you're seeing to get into taking these courses. And of course, they're only $25. So if you're outside of Johnson County, it's $25. If you're inside, use that code. But human trafficking awareness will walk you through everything you need to understand about this topic globally and here in the United States, the indicators of human trafficking that you're likely to see and what to do when you see those indicators in your community. Then, if you want to go a little further, you take the Strategy to End Human Trafficking course. And that's going to introduce you to way more information than I could share today about what all is needed in your community in order to eradicate human trafficking. And you'll really unpack those layers. And then my role to end human trafficking is a bit like a choose your own adventure course, where you can say, I'm going to wear this hat. I'm going to wear a teacher's hat and create a strategic action plan for my community. I'm going to wear my church hat and create a strategic action plan. I will wear my civic club hat. Or my business hat. You can put on different hats and try to design something, because all of us are one person, but we all wear multiple hats, I know. And so you'll be able to create a strategic action plan there. What you'll also get access to, and this is something we're providing everyone. So we have so that you know, about learners in Justice U from 47 states and 8 countries. So we're aiming for 1 million people to earn their badges. So I sincerely hope that you do that. But what you'll also get access to when you sign up for Justice U is everything in Engage Together too. So while Justice U is like, think of it like an educational solution, Engage Together is a collaborative one. And we really want to open your mind's eye to that world of possibilities. So you'll get inside here, you'll get access to toolkits, online libraries, resource libraries, community assessment guides, occupational profiles, which are one of my favorite things, all kinds of downloads that you can share with others, communications and blogs, and our team's support for any and every question you send our way. So these two solutions together are meant to really help you move from information to ideation to impact in your local community. And I just can't wait for you to access everything that's there. Lastly, I want to highlight that you've also got this great resource that we've launched into today. So thanks to the Rotary clubs in District, I want to say it right, Lucy, 5710, I think is that true? Yes. Okay. So many of whom are on this call today, we are going to be rolling into providing all kinds of resources and community forums for Johnson County, especially, and the Kansas City metro area as well, in the months ahead. So if you'll go to veronicasvoice.org/Rotary Swarm, you can stay in the know and up to date and even register there. All right, Lucy, I'm handing it back to you.
Yes, and I'm seeing some of the questions about, is it only for Johnson County? So we will get back with everybody. I really am excited about the interest in this. I think something I pointed out to Ashley is I really think it's important today that we do push earning your badge. And I just did a refresher course. I have all my badges, but I just did the refresher course and even completed some of it this morning. And my favorite piece, my personal favorite piece of it, is my role. And it gives you the opportunity to actually fill in those blanks and put together your plan. And they don't keep any of that information, but the whole system is designed in such a way that you can download it yourself and print it and put it in your planner and make your role something that you can incorporate into your day-to-day life. Gives really practical examples of how you can even use your habits of where you get coffee and where you get gasoline and that type of thing, or how you travel, using incorporating this into your everyday life. So we're not asking you to get a superhero cape or to step out of your comfort zone too far, but really just how do I incorporate this into my current relationships, my current influence, my current activities. Also, as you guys saw, I mean, there's not only one church in Johnson County that is working to fight trafficking. There's others. There's not only 36 organizations in total who are really concerned about this issue and want to make an impact. We need to have more people complete the survey. I'll share with you all, we invited 250 organizations to complete the survey. Some, just because of the whole nature of the pandemic, right, response, and people working remotely and services changing and everything, they just didn't have time to do it right now. Others, they felt like, well, we don't really have an initiative to work specifically in that space, so it doesn't, it really isn't something that we need to complete. That people had their reasons for not completing it. Some of it, they just may not have seen it just because of the ocean that an inbox is. This is where we need this conversation. We need you to reach out to people that tell them what you've heard about today, and invite them to complete this survey. Even if they're not in Johnson County, we still invite them. If they're anywhere in the Kansas City and surrounding area, we invite them to complete the survey. And then if you go to Veronica, I'm checking my time. If you go to veronicasvoice.org/rotary-swarm, there is a place where you can scroll to the bottom and you can say, keep me posted on the upcoming communications. So invite you to do that as well. I again really want to thank you, Ashley, for the time that you have spent digesting all and analyzing all of the information that has been gathered so far. I have found it to be very helpful, and I think I speak on behalf of the Rotary clubs and the organizations that participated in this survey in saying this is very helpful information, and we are committed to get this information shared broadly, even beyond just those who participated, shared in ways like we are today. But we're also going to have this information posted on the website, and we will have a portal in the next coming weeks. We'll have a portal where you can get in, like Ashley said, and you can see this information and play with it to a degree, and look at how can I articulate this story. And I want to reiterate what Ashley said too in my last 2 minutes here, that Engaged Together, they do respond. She has a mighty team. They are brilliant. They help over 10,000 organizations a year. Right? So they've built their capacity to be able to have a response to people. So if you want to reach out directly to Engage Together with any questions you have, you're welcome to do that. You're welcome to reach out directly to Veronica's Voice at KC-case at veronicasvoice.org, or simply by signing up on the Rotary-Swarm page. We do want to stay in touch with you, and we invite you to be part of every meeting that we're about to have. August will be on vulnerability. Again, the second Wednesday of the month is when these meetings are, over the noon hour. In September, we're going to be looking at demand. You guys will be very impressed with what law enforcement in Johnson County have been doing in collaboration with the state and in collaboration with federal partners. They've also collaborated with Missouri just across the state line in many efforts to identify victims of trafficking, but also to cut down those systems where traffickers are moving into our areas, and to address demand in our community. So I'm really excited for you all to learn more about that and how we can support law enforcement, because services is their greatest need. They're like, we have identified these people, and now what do we do for them to support their recovery? And then on October, we'll be looking at reforms. And this will be a great time to do that, because before the legislature in Kansas really starts to hone in on what their priorities are going to be for the coming year, this is an important time for us to share with you all some of what our priorities are, and what we feel like really needs to see happen in the state of Kansas. So those are our upcoming events, and it is 1 o'clock. So I will go ahead and stop the recording at this point so we can have a time of networking and Q&A.